Hey everyone, welcome back to Try Not to Sleep. I'm your host, Ethan Brooks, and as always, we're here with another calm, slightly boring story from history to help you unwind. Tonight, we will be talking about the discovery and study of ancient Sumerian records that might reshape our understanding of humanity's earliest civilizations. All right, get comfortable, and let's see how far you make it before you fall asleep. Around 3500 BCE, the Sumerians appeared in southern Mesopotamia. Archaeologists found no gradual development leading to their civilization. Their cities, such as Eridu, Uruk, and rose quickly with organized layouts and monumental temples. Sumerian writing, called cuneiform, emerged fully developed by 3300 BCE. The earliest tablets from Uruk show complex accounting, legal codes, and astronomical records. Sumerian mathematics used a base 60 system, not the base 10 found in later societies. Their geometry and calculation methods appear on thousands of clay tablets. Early Sumerian texts include lists of kings, myths, and technical vocabulary from an unknown language. The Sumerians described themselves as restorers of ancient knowledge, not inventors. Excavations in cities like Uruk uncovered over 40,000 tablets. These record laws, medicine, rituals, and advanced metallurgy. Sumerian temples aligned with celestial cycles, and their festivals matched astronomical events. Their civilization appeared with advanced skills in city planning, mathematics, and astronomy. The origins of the Sumerian people and their sudden development remain unexplained. Sumerian cities like Eridu, Uruk, and Nippur were built with straight streets, drainage systems, and central temples. Archaeologists found evidence of fired brick construction, standardized measurements, and city walls. Ziggurats, or step temples, dominated the skylines. These structures were aligned with the cardinal directions and often matched astronomical events such as solstices and equinoxes. Sumerian scribes recorded crop yields, trade, and legal agreements on clay tablets. Their number system used both base 12 and base 60, allowing precise calculation of time, area, and volume. Tablets from Sippar show knowledge of right triangles and advanced geometry. Artisans produced bronze tools and weapons before the broader Bronze Age. Metallurgical recipes and medicinal formulas appear in temple archives. Sumerian temple priests managed irrigation networks, distributing water through canals and regulating planting cycles. Libraries in cities like Nippur and Nineveh stored thousands of tablets. Scribes copied and preserved texts for generations. The Sumerians credited their skills to instruction from the gods, especially the Anunnaki. Their cities functioned as centers of administration, science, and worship from the very beginning. The origins of the Sumerians remain uncertain. Their language, Sumerian, has no known relatives and is classified as a language isolate. Archaeologists have not found evidence of a gradual cultural evolution in southern Mesopotamia before their arrival. Sumerian writing appears fully developed around 3300 BCE, with standardized cuneiform script and technical vocabulary data. Artifacts from early Sumerian sites show advanced techniques in pottery, metallurgy, and mathematics. The Sumerians used base 60 and base 12 systems, and their tablets reveal early forms of calculus and geometry. Some tablets even describe devices and tools whose functions are still debated by scholars. The Sumerians themselves claimed their knowledge came from the gods, not from invention. Myths describe the Anunnaki as teachers who descended from the sky. The Sumerian King List records rulers with impossibly long reigns, suggesting a blending of myth and history. Archaeological layers in cities like Ur and Shuruppak show evidence of a great flood, supporting Sumerian flood legends. Despite extensive excavations, the sudden appearance and advanced state of Sumerian civilization remain a mystery. Eridu is considered the oldest city in southern Mesopotamia. Excavations at Eridu show continuous occupation layers dating back to at least 5,400 BCE. Archaeologists uncovered a sequence of temples built one atop another, each larger and more complex than the last. The earliest levels contain simple mud brick structures, but later layers reveal large temples with altars and decorative clay cones. Artifacts from Eridu include pottery, tools, and clay figurines. The city's layout centered around the temple, which served as both a religious and administrative hub. Sumerian texts name Eridu as the first city founded after the creation of the world. According to the Sumerian King List, kingship first descended from heaven to Eridu. Other ancient settlements, such as Uruk and Ur, show similar patterns of development. These cities featured planned streets, irrigation canals, and defensive walls. Archaeologists found evidence of early writing, accounting, and standardized weights in these sites. The emergence of these cities marks the beginning of urban civilization in Mesopotamia. Their origins, like Eridus, remain only partly understood. Uruk became one of the largest and most influential cities in early Mesopotamia. By 3200 BCE, its population may have reached 40,000. Archaeologists discovered over 40,000 clay tablets in Uruk, many inscribed with cuneiform writing. These tablets record transactions, inventories, and administrative details. They also include early literature, such as the Epic of Gilgamesh. The city's layout was carefully planned. Streets ran in straight lines, and districts were organized by function. Residential areas, workshops, and temples were separated. The central ziggurat, dedicated to the goddess Inanna, dominated the city's skyline. Canals and irrigation channels ran through Uruk, supporting agriculture and trade. Uruk scribes used a base 60 number system for calculations. They recorded measurements of land, grain, and labor. The tablets show evidence of early algorithms and geometric principles. City planners used standardized bricks and precise ratios in construction. Temples and public buildings followed mathematical proportions, such as the 3-4-5 right triangle. The records from Uruk reveal a society skilled in administration, engineering, and mathematics. Around 3000 BCE, large cities appeared almost simultaneously in Sumer, Egypt, and the Indus Valley. Archaeologists note that these civilizations developed advanced urban planning, writing systems, and monumental architecture within a short span of time. In Egypt, the construction of pyramids began as Sumerians were building ziggurats. The Indus Valley cities, like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, featured grid layouts and drainage systems similar to those in Sumerian cities. All three regions used standardized weights and measures. Their artisans produced high-quality pottery, metal tools, and jewelry. Each civilization established forms of record-keeping: cuneiform in Sumer, hieroglyphs in Egypt, and the still undeciphered script of the Indus Valley. Archaeologists observe that their calendars and timekeeping methods relied on astronomy and lunar cycle. Trade networks connected these early civilizations. Sumerian artifacts have been found in the Indus Valley, and Egyptian beads appear in Mesopotamian sites. Despite differences in language and culture, the rise of these advanced societies occurred in parallel, showing a remarkable level of synchronization in development and achievement. The earliest cuneiform writing appeared in Sumer around 3300 BCE DY. Archaeologists uncovered clay tablets from Uruk and other cities, already showing a sophisticated script with hundreds of signs. Cuneiform was not pictographic or primitive. It used wedge-shaped impressions made with a reed stylus. Scribes recorded numbers, names, transactions, and technical information in columns and rows. The system included symbols for abstract ideas, measurements, and administrative terms. Sumerian cuneiform could represent spoken syllables and entire words. Early tablets list quantities of grain, livestock, and labor, but others record hymns, laws, and astronomical data. The script was quickly adapted for Akkadian, Elamite, and other languages. Sumerian cuneiform required years of training for scribes. Temple schools taught students to memorize hundreds of signs and practice writing on clay. The script remained largely unchanged for centuries, allowing knowledge to be copied and preserved across generations. By 2500 BCE, cuneiform was used for literature, science, and diplomacy throughout Mesopotamia. Its complexity and precision set it apart from other early writing systems. The Sumerians credited the invention of writing to the goddess Nisaba. She was depicted holding a tablet and a stylus, and was honored as the patron of scribes, calculation, and record-keeping. Temples dedicated to Nisaba trained young scribes in the art of cuneiform. Students learned to copy lists, contracts, and hymns, repeating each sign until they achieved precision. Scribes held a respected position in Sumerian society. They managed temple accounts, documented legal proceedings, and preserved myths. Many tablets found in Nippur and Uruk bear invocations to Nisaba, asking for clarity and skill. The Sumerians believed that writing was a divine trust, not merely a tool. After Sumerian ceased as a spoken language, it remained the sacred language of scholarship and ritual. Babylonian and Assyrian scribes continued to study Sumerian texts for centuries. They copied and restored old tablets, ensuring the survival of ancient knowledge. The script's durability and adaptability allowed it to endure long after Sumer itself had faded. Nisaba's legacy shaped the intellectual traditions of Mesopotamia and beyond. Sumerian scribes created clay tablets to record every aspect of daily life, law, and science. They pressed cuneiform signs into wet clay, then baked or dried the tablets for durability. These tablets stored contracts, inventories, medical recipes, astronomical observations, and epic tales. Temples and palaces kept archives with thousands of tablets stacked on shelves or buried in jars. When cities fell to invasion or disaster, many archives were burned. The fire hardened the clay, preserving the writing for millennia. Archaeologists in the 19th and 20th centuries uncovered these tablets in sites like Nippur, and Nineveh. The library of Ashurbanipal in Nineveh alone yielded over 30,000 tablets, including Sumerian originals and later copies. Some tablets were buried with the dead as messages for the underworld. Others were hidden in foundation deposits beneath temples. Scribes often included dates, names, and official seals, allowing researchers to reconstruct ancient events. The durability of clay tablets ensured that Sumerian knowledge survived floods, wars, and centuries of abandonment. These records became time capsules, connecting the ancient world to the present. The Sumerian King List is one of the most enigmatic texts found on these tablets. It lists the names of rulers, their cities, and the lengths of their reigns. Some kings are said to have ruled for thousands of years. Names such as Alulim and Alongar appear at the beginning, linked to the city of Eridu. The list describes kingship as descending from heaven and moving from city to city after each dynasty's fall. Scholars debate the meaning of the long reigns. Some suggest the numbers reflect lunar cycles or symbolic calendars, not actual years. The earliest sections blend myth and history, while later entries match archaeological evidence for real rulers and cities. The King List bridges the legendary era before the Great Flood and the historical dynasties that followed. Archaeologists found copies of the King List in several cities, including Nippur and Larsa. Each version has slight differences, but all preserve the same sequence of cities and rulers. The King List remains a key source for reconstructing Sumerian chronology and understanding how the Sumerians viewed their own past. The Sumerians believed that kingship was not a human invention, but a gift from the gods. The King List describes kingship as descending from heaven to specific cities, beginning with Eridu. Rulers claimed legitimacy through divine mandate, often associating themselves with major deities like Anu, Enlil, or Inanna. Royal inscriptions frequently mention the gods granting authority, wisdom, and protection to the king. The Anunnaki, a group of powerful deities, were seen as judges and teachers who appointed and supervised human rulers. Sumerian myths describe these gods as descending from the sky and interacting directly with kings. Some early rulers, such as Gilgamesh of Uruk, were described as part divine and part mortal. Statues and cylinder seals often depict kings standing before winged gods or receiving symbols of power. Astronomical knowledge reinforced the king's connection to the heavens. Temples and ziggurats were aligned with stars and planets, and rituals marked celestial events. The king's role included maintaining cosmic order through justice, ritual, and observance of sacred calendar. This belief in divine mandate shaped Sumerian government and society for centuries. Sumerian mathematics relied on symbolic numbers and careful observation of lunar cycles. Their primary system used base 60, which allowed for easy division and accurate calculation. Scribes recorded numbers with wedge-shaped marks, using special symbols for 1, 10, 60, 600, and 3,600, called Sar Dart Gar. This system made it possible to track time, measure land, and calculate astronomical events. The Sumerian calendar was based on the phases of the moon. Each month began with the first visible crescent. 12 lunar months formed a year, but scribes added extra months to keep the calendar aligned with the solar cycle. Festivals and rituals were scheduled according to these cycles, linking religious life to predictable natural patterns. King lists and mythological texts often use symbolic numbers. Reign lengths in the Sumerian King List sometimes totaled multiples of 60 or 3,600, reflecting their mathematical traditions rather than literal history. Some scholars believe these numbers represented lunar cycles or cosmic periods. This use of symbolic counting connected the daily life of Sumerians to the rhythms of the heavens and reinforced the sacred order of their society. Archaeologists excavating ancient Mesopotamian cities found thick layers of silt buried beneath the ruins. In places like Uruk, and Kish, a 2-meter deposit of clay and silt separates older settlement layers from later construction. This layer contains freshwater shells and lacks evidence of human activity, suggesting a sudden flood event. Radiocarbon dating places this flood around 2900 BCE Doi. Sumerian tablets describe a great flood that swept over the land, ending one era and beginning another. The Epic of Gilgamesh and other texts tell of a hero who survives the deluge by building a boat. This story predates the biblical account of Noah by centuries. After the flood, Sumerian records state that kingship was reestablished and cities were rebuilt. Archaeologists link the flood layer to these ancient stories. The silt marks a clear break in settlement, followed by new architecture and artifacts above it. The flood was not only a disaster, but also a cultural transition. Sumerians preserved the memory of this event in their myths, king lists, and temple rituals. Sumerian tablets name the flood survivor as Zudra, also called Ziusudra. His story appears on cuneiform tablets from Nippur and other sites, dating to the early 2nd millennium BCE. According to the texts, Zudra ruled the city of Shuruppak before the flood. The gods warned him of the coming disaster and instructed him to build a large boat. The instructions included details about the boat's dimensions and the need to save family, animals, and seed. Zudra's boat survived the rising waters, which covered the land for several days. When the flood receded, Zudra made offerings to the gods on a mountaintop. Tatio, the gods granted him eternal life as a reward for obedience and piety. This account predates the biblical story of Noah by more than 1,000 years. Archaeologists found flood deposits in Shuruppak, matching the time described in the tablets. The story of Zudra was copied and adapted by later cultures, including the Akkadians and Babylonian. The Sumerian version remains the earliest known written account of a great flood and a chosen survivor. After the flood, Sumerian records state that kingship was restored and descended again from heaven. The Sumerian King List resumes with new dynasties, beginning with Kish as the first city to receive royal authority. The earliest post-flood kings, such as Jushur and Kolasina Bel, are listed with reigns of hundreds of years, though these numbers are considered symbolic by most scholars. Cities like Uruk, and Lagash soon appear in the King List as centers of power. Archaeological evidence shows new construction and urban renewal in these cities. After the flood layer, temples were rebuilt, and city walls were repaired or expanded. Administrative tablets from this period document the resumption of trade, agriculture, and religious festivals. The king's role remained closely tied to the gods. Inscriptions from this era describe rulers as chosen by the gods and responsible for maintaining justice and order. The concept of divine mandate continued to legitimize authority. Scribes carefully recorded each king's name, city, and length of reign, preserving the memory of kingship's restoration after the catastrophe. Sumerian mathematics used a sexagesimal, or base 60, system therein. This system allowed scribes to write large and small numbers efficiently. They used special symbols for units, tens, and multiples of 60. Tablets from Uruk and Sippar show calculations for land area, crop yields, and temple inventories using this base 60 notation. Astronomers in Sumer measured time and celestial cycles with the same system. They divided the hour into 60 minutes and the circle into 360 degrees. These conventions remain in use today. Sumerian records include lists of lunar months, solar years, and planetary movements. Priests tracked the motions of Venus, Jupiter, and other visible planets. Mathematical tablets describe right triangles, ratios, and geometric progressions. The Sumerians used the sar, a unit equal to 3,600, for astronomical and calendrical calculation. They aligned temple construction with solstices and equinoxes, relying on precise observations. Some tablets contain star charts and instructions for predicting eclipses. The use of base 60 and advanced notation gave Sumerian priests and scribes tools for accurate measurement and long-term record-keeping. These innovations supported administration, ritual, and scientific study across generations. Sumerian temples were constructed with careful attention to astronomical alignment. Archaeologists found that many ziggurats and temple platforms were oriented to cardinal directions and significant celestial events. The main axis of the White Temple at Uruk, for example, points toward the rising sun at the equinox. Temples in Nippur and Eridu show similar alignments with solstices and lunar standstills. Priests observed the movements of stars and planets from the tops of ziggurats. They recorded these observations on clay tablets, noting the positions of Venus, Jupiter, and the moon. Rituals and festivals were scheduled according to these celestial cycles. The Sumerian calendar was adjusted based on lunar and solar observations, ensuring that religious ceremonies matched the natural order. Temple construction used geometric ratios, such as the 3-4-5 right triangle, to create precise angles and proportions. These ratios appear in the ground plans of major temples and in the layout of city streets. The alignment of sacred buildings reinforced the connection between heaven and earth, supporting the belief that the gods communicated their will through the stars. Sumerian tablets from cities like Sippar and Uruk show evidence of advanced geometry. Scribes calculated areas of fields using formulas for rectangles, triangles, and trapezoids. They used tables of squares and cubes for quick reference. Some tablets display early forms of algebra, with unknowns represented by symbols. The Sumerians applied the Pythagorean triple 3-4-5 to create right angles in construction. Centuries before Pythagoras lived, a tablet from Sippar, dated to around 1936 BCE, demonstrates accurate calculation of the area of a right triangle. Scribes also solved problems involving volume, such as measuring the capacity of storage jars and canal. They used ratios and proportions to scale architectural plans and artwork. Sumerian artists applied harmonic ratios in statue design, ensuring mathematical balance. The Sumerians developed early calculus concepts, including methods for summing series and dividing land into equal parts. Their mathematical vocabulary included terms for roots, powers, and fractions. These skills supported administration, trade, and temple management. The precision of Sumerian geometry and calculus influenced later Babylonian, Egyptian, and Greek mathematics. Sumerian texts describe the Anunnaki as powerful beings who descended from the sky. These figures are named in myths, king lists, and temple inscriptions. The Sumerians credited the Anunnaki with teaching writing, mathematics, metallurgy, and law. In cuneiform tablets, the Anunnaki are called judges, rulers, and instructors. Statues and cylinder seals show them with wings, standing beside sacred trees or holding strange devices. Myths state that the Anunnaki gave humans the knowledge needed to build cities and organize society. The Sumerians did not claim to invent these skills, but to restore them after disasters, such as the Great Flood. Priests maintained rituals and festivals to honor the Anunnaki, believing that proper observance kept the link between heaven and earth. The names of the Anunnaki appear in astronomical records and star charts. Their leader, Anu, is associated with the sky, while Enlil governs air and storms, and Enki rules the waters below. These gods were seen as custodians of knowledge, not its originators. Sumerian records present the Anunnaki as real presences, responsible for the foundations of civilization. Sumerian myths describe the gods as caretakers of wisdom, order, and tradition. The Anunnaki maintained the laws of nature and society, but did not invent them. Texts say the gods received their roles and duties from earlier cycles, continuing a cosmic order that predated their reign. In temple rituals, priests invoked the gods not to create new knowledge, but to preserve and transmit what already existed. The Sumerians believed that writing, mathematics, and metallurgy were gifts restored to humanity after periods of loss or disaster. Tablets record that the goddess Nisaba kept the tablets of destiny and calculation, ensuring that knowledge survived floods and invasion. Priests and scribes acted as intermediaries, copying and safeguarding ancient texts for future generations. In the Epic of Gilgamesh and other stories, the gods warn, instruct, and judge, but rarely invent or change the world's structure. The Sumerians saw themselves as stewards, responsible for remembering and restoring the divine patterns entrusted to them. This worldview shaped their approach to science, law, and ritual, emphasizing preservation over innovation. Sumerian art and cylinder seals often depict a stylized tree flanked by winged beings. Archaeologists call this motif the tree of life. The tree appears on royal seals, temple decorations, and boundary stone. In Sumerian mythology, the tree connects heaven, earth, and the underworld. It serves as a symbol of lineage, life, and divine authority. The tree of life sometimes stands between two Anunnaki or guardian spirit. These figures hold objects resembling pine cones or buckets, possibly linked to fertility or purification rituals. The tree's branches are shown with symmetrical leaves or fruits, arranged in geometric patterns. Some scholars interpret the tree as a genetic or family emblem, while others see it as a map of the cosmos. Similar tree symbols appear in later cultures, including Assyria, Babylon, and ancient Persia. The motif also connects to the biblical tree of knowledge. Sumerian texts mention sacred groves and gardens in temple precincts, where priests performed rituals. The tree of life remained a central image in Sumerian religion and influenced later civilizations across the Near East. Sumerian craftsmen were among the first to work extensively with bronze. Bronze is an alloy of copper and tin, and it is harder and more durable than pure copper. Archaeologists have found bronze tools, weapons, and vessels in Sumerian graves and temple sites dating to the 3rd millennium BCE. Common items include axes, chisels, sickles, and spearheads. These tools allowed for more efficient farming, construction, and warfare. Sumerian tablets record recipes for smelting and alloying metals. The texts describe the use of furnaces and bellows to reach the high temperatures needed for bronze production. Metallurgists measured proportions of copper and tin with standardized weights. Some workshops specialized in casting statues and ritual objects for temples. Inscriptions on bronze items often name the craftsman and dedicate the object to a deity. Evidence shows that Sumerians traded for tin, which was not locally available. Trade routes extended to Anatolia and Iran to secure metal supplies. The development of bronze technology contributed to the growth of Sumerian cities and their influence in the ancient world. Archaeologists have found evidence suggesting the Sumerians may have used simple lenses and optical devices. Small pieces of polished rock crystal and quartz have been recovered from sites such as Nippur and Uruk. Some of these objects are shaped into convex forms and could magnify small details when placed over tablets or seals. Researchers have tested replicas and confirmed their ability to enlarge cuneiform signs and fine engravings. A few ancient texts mention stones that see or describe tools used by scribes and craftsmen to examine minute markings. Cylinder seals and intricate jewelry from Sumerian workshops display a level of detail that may have required magnification. Some scholars propose that these lenses were used in administrative offices or workshops to inspect work for accuracy. There are also references in later Babylonian and Assyrian records to devices that may have been inherited from Sumerian traditions. These include descriptions of measuring rods and sighting tools used in temple construction and astronomy. While no complete optical instrument has been found, the artifacts and texts suggest the Sumerians experimented with early forms of magnification and precision tools. Sumerian tablets record detailed lists of medicinal plants, minerals, and treatments. Archaeologists have found clay tablets from Nippur and are containing hundreds of prescriptions. Scribes wrote instructions for preparing ointments, salves, and poultices. Ingredients included myrrh, cedar oil, juniper, and various resins. Sumerian healers used honey and wine as antiseptics and carriers for medicines. Some tablets describe the use of alkalis, salts, and copper compounds for cleaning wounds and treating infections. Sumerians documented methods for distilling and purifying substances. They used clay vessels and heated sand baths for chemical processes. Recipes for dyes and perfumes appear alongside medical texts, showing overlap between chemistry and daily life. Temple archives list specialists such as Asu, physicians, Asipu, exorcists, and perfumers. Physicians diagnosed illnesses by examining symptoms and consulting omen texts. Treatments combined herbal remedies, incantations, and ritual purification. Sumerian chemical knowledge also supported metallurgy and pottery production. Their records show a systematic approach to health, hygiene, and material transformation, preserved on clay tablets for later civilizations. Sumerian ziggurats were massive, stepped structures built from mud brick and fired brick. The most famous examples include the ziggurats of Eridu, and Babylon. Each ziggurat served as the center of its city, rising in several terraces with a temple at the summit. Construction followed precise geometric ratios, such as the 3-4-5 triangle, to ensure stability and harmony. Builders aligned ziggurats with cardinal directions and important celestial events. The main stairways often faced sunrise at the equinox or solstice. Archaeologists found that the colors of each stage represented different planets: black for Saturn, red for Mars, and gold for the Sun. The ziggurat at Babylon, called Edimani, had 7 levels, each linked to a known planet. Priests used the heights of ziggurats to observe stars and planets. Rituals performed on the upper terraces marked astronomical cycles and festivals. Sumerian texts describe ziggurats as meeting points between heaven and earth, where gods could descend. These structures functioned as both religious centers and cosmic maps, connecting city life to the order of the universe. Sumerian temples and ziggurats incorporated sound and vibration into their design. Archaeologists discovered bronze bowls and vessels in temple ruins. When struck, these bowls produced resonant tones tuned to specific frequencies. Texts describe their use in rituals, purification, and communication with the divine. Sumerian hymns and chants were performed in measured rhythms, matching the acoustic properties of temple halls. Architects used geometric ratios, such as 3-4-5, not only for construction, but also for creating harmonic spaces. The proportions of walls, columns, and chambers were calculated to enhance sound resonance. Some temple floors and walls contained patterns of grooves or raised tiles, possibly to guide vibration or improve acoustics. Mathematical tablets show that Sumerians understood the relationship between length, tension, and musical pitch. They built lyres and harps with strings tuned to precise intervals. Rituals often included music, chanting, and the burning of fragrant herbs, some of which had air-purifying chemical effects. These practices linked geometry, sound, and ritual, reinforcing the connection between the physical structure of temples and the unseen order of the cosmos. Sumerian rituals took place in temple courtyards and on the upper terraces of ziggurats. Priests wore linen garments and followed strict purification routines before ceremonies. Offerings included bread, beer, fruits, and animal sacrifices. Scribes recorded the details of each ritual on clay tablets, listing the required offerings, prayers, and chants. Many ceremonies were timed to coincide with celestial events. The Acoustics festival, held at the New Year, marked the spring equinox and the renewal of kingship. Priests read omens from the stars and performed symbolic reenactments of creation myths. Processions carried statues of the gods through city streets and up temple stairs. Rituals often involved measured steps and hand gestures, matching the rhythms of recited hymns. Musicians played lyres and drums, while incense smoke rose from altars. The Sumerians believed these actions maintained the balance between heaven and earth. They saw ritual as a duty to uphold cosmic order and ensure the favor of the gods. Each ceremony was documented and repeated according to tradition, preserving continuity across generations. After the fall of Sumerian city-states, Babylonian rulers and priests inherited their traditions. Babylonian scribes learned Sumerian as a sacred language and continued to use cuneiform script for official and religious texts. They copied, translated, and expanded Sumerian myths, laws, and scientific records. The Epic of Gilgamesh and the Flood story were preserved in Babylonian versions, with only minor changes from the originals. Babylonian temples served as centers of learning, collecting thousands of clay tablets from earlier periods. The library of Ashurbanipal in Nineveh contained more than 30,000 tablets, many written in Sumerian and Akkadian. Priests and scholars studied mathematics, astronomy, and medicine using Sumerian methods and vocabulary. Babylonian astronomers built on Sumerian observations, recording planetary movements and eclipses with greater precision. Legal codes, such as the Code of Hammurabi, drew from Sumerian laws and administrative practices. Babylonian rituals and festivals followed Sumerian calendars and ceremonial patterns. Through careful copying and adaptation, the Babylonians ensured that Sumerian wisdom survived and influenced later civilizations in the ancient Near East. Greek and Persian empires encountered Mesopotamian traditions during their expansion. When Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon in 539 BCE, Persian administrators inherited temple archives and local scholars. Persian priests studied cuneiform tablets and adopted elements of Babylonian astronomy and ritual. Zoroastrianism, the Persian state religion, incorporated concepts of cosmic order and sacred fire from Mesopotamian practices. Greek travelers and scholars visited Babylonian temples and observed their ceremonies. Herodotus described Babylonian rituals and the structure of ziggurats in his histories. Greek mathematicians such as Pythagoras reportedly learned geometry and numerical systems from Babylonian priests. Greek philosophers adopted Mesopotamian ideas about cycles of time and planetary influence. After Alexander the Great conquered Babylon in 331 BCE, Greek officials preserved temple libraries and translated some cuneiform texts into Greek. Hellenistic astronomers, including Hipparchus and Ptolemy, used Babylonian star charts and mathematical tables. Greek and Persian appropriation of Sumerian Babylonian knowledge helped transmit these traditions to Egypt, the Mediterranean, and later Western science. The preservation and adaptation of Sumerian wisdom continued through these new empires. After the fall of Babylon, many Sumerian and Babylonian texts were lost or buried. Temple libraries in cities like Nippur, Uruk, and Nineveh fell into ruin. Clay tablets remained underground for nearly 2,000 years, forgotten by later empire. Some knowledge survived in translation. Babylonian astronomy, mathematics, and law influenced Greek, Egyptian, and Roman scholars. The Roman Church preserved fragments of ancient science in Christian and alchemical texts. During the Islamic Golden Age, scholars in Baghdad translated Babylonian and Greek works into Arabic. Astronomers and mathematicians studied Sumerian-based systems for timekeeping and calculation. Some Sumerian words and concepts entered Arabic and Latin scientific vocabulary. Medieval scribes copied and adapted these ideas, but much original context was lost. In the 19th century, European archaeologists excavated Mesopotamian sites and rediscovered tens of thousands of clay tablets. Specialists learned to read cuneiform and reconstructed Sumerian history, science, and literature. Modern digital archives now preserve these texts for future generations. The cycle of loss and rediscovery continues as new finds and translations reveal more about Sumerian civilization. In the 19th century, European explorers and archaeologists began systematic excavations in Mesopotamia. French and British teams worked at sites like Nineveh, Babylon, Ur, and Nimrud. In 1843, Paul-Émile Botta uncovered the palace of Sargon II at Khorsabad. Austin Henry Laird excavated the ruins of Nineveh and found the library of Ashurbanipal. Thousands of clay tablets were shipped to museums in London and Paris. In 1850, Hormuzd Rassam discovered the flood tablet containing the earliest known version of the Epic of Gilgamesh. Leonard Woolley later led excavations at Ur, where he found royal tombs and temple foundation. Teams uncovered ziggurat remains, city walls, and administrative buildings. Archaeologists documented city layouts, burial practices, and artifacts such as jewelry, tools, and statues. Scholars learned to decipher cuneiform using the Behistun inscription, which provided a trilingual key. By the late 19th century, researchers could read Sumerian, Akkadian, and Babylonian texts. Museums cataloged tens of thousands of tablets, revealing the complexity and achievements of Sumerian civilization for the first time in modern history. Sumerian tablets documented not only stories and laws, but also mathematical procedures. Scribes wrote step-by-step calculations for dividing land, measuring grain, and predicting celestial events. Some tablets contain tables of squares, cubes, and reciprocals, used for solving equations. Others show early algorithms for extracting square roots or converting units. These methods allowed Sumerian administrators to manage complex irrigation systems and temple inventories. Cuneiform records also describe data organization. Scribes grouped entries by date, location, and category using headings and subheadings. They created lists, catalogs, and indexes for quick reference. This approach resembles modern database structures. The durability of clay preserved these records for thousands of years, surviving floods, fires, and the collapse of empires. In the 20th and 21st centuries, researchers began digitizing Sumerian tablets. High-resolution images and transliterations are now stored in online archives. Scholars use computers to analyze text patterns, reconstruct damaged tablets, and compare versions from different sites. The methods of Sumerian record-keeping find echoes in today's digital information systems, connecting ancient algorithms to modern technology. Modern historians once viewed Sumerians as a primitive precursor to later civilizations. Excavations and translations have changed this perspective. Evidence now shows that Sumerian mathematics, law, and astronomy influenced Babylonian, Assyrian, and Persian societies. Greek and Egyptian scholars adopted Sumerian concepts of time, geometry, and administration. The Sumerian base 60 system remains in modern timekeeping and geometry. Sumerian myths and king lists preserve some of the oldest written accounts of floods, divine kingship, and the origins of cities. The Epic of Gilgamesh predates Homeric epics by over 1,000 years. Sumerian city planning, irrigation, and metallurgy set standards followed by later empires in Mesopotamia and beyond. Archaeological finds at sites like Eridu, Uruk, and Ur confirm the scale and complexity of Sumerian society. Their records document trade with the Indus Valley and Egypt, showing early globalization. Sumerian language and cuneiform script became the foundation for written communication in the region for centuries. Today, Sumer is recognized as a central force in the development of world civilization, not just an early chapter. Archaeologists have recovered over 100,000 cuneiform tablets from sites across Mesopotamia. Each tablet was shaped by hand, inscribed with a reed stylus, and baked or dried for preservation. Many tablets are broken with only fragments remaining. Specialists clean, piece together, and photograph these fragments in laboratories. Digital imaging and 3D scanning help reconstruct damaged texts and read faded signs. Cuneiform tablets were used for administration, mathematics, literature, and science. Scribes organized information in columns and rows, similar to modern spreadsheets. Some tablets contain diagrams, tables, and geometric shapes. Their layouts resemble the grids and patterns found in modern circuit boards and microchips. The Sumerian approach to information, systematic, modular, and durable, echoes in today's digital technology. Researchers now store images and translations of Sumerian tablets in online databases. These digital archives allow global access and automated analysis. The preservation of knowledge once done in clay now continues in silicon and code. The connection between ancient clay fragments and modern circuits shows the enduring importance of recording, organizing, and transmitting information across generations. The first Sumerian tablets were deciphered in the mid-19th century. Scholars such as Henry Rawlinson and George Smith compared cuneiform signs with Akkadian and Persian texts. They identified word lists, grammatical tables, and bilingual inscriptions that linked Sumerian to later languages. Early translations focused on royal inscriptions, legal codes, and myths. Over time, teams cataloged tablets in museums and universities. Linguists created dictionaries and grammar guides for Sumerian. They analyzed thousands of administrative records, contracts, and medical recipes. Computer databases now store transliterations and translations, allowing researchers to compare texts from different sites and periods. Some Sumerian words and concepts have no direct equivalent in modern languages. Specialists consult parallel texts in Akkadian or Babylonian to clarify meanings. New discoveries and improved imaging reveal previously unreadable signs. Collaborative projects bring together experts in language, archaeology, and digital technology. Translation efforts continue to expand the understanding of Sumerian society. Ancient messages once pressed into clay are now accessible in multiple languages worldwide. The process connects the daily life of Sumerians to modern readers, bridging a gap of 5,000 years. Sumerian civilization ended as new powers rose in Mesopotamia. Akkadian, Babylonian, and Assyrian rulers conquered Sumerian cities and adopted their systems of writing, law, and administration. Sumerian language gradually disappeared from daily use, but remained the language of scholarship and ritual in temples. Priests and scribes continued to copy Sumerian texts for centuries, preserving hymns, myths, and technical knowledge. Babylonian astronomers used Sumerian star charts and mathematical tables. Legal codes in later empires followed Sumerian models. The Epic of Gilgamesh, first written in Sumerian, was translated and retold in Akkadian and Babylonian version. Sumerian inventions, such as the base 60 number system and cuneiform script, spread across the Near East. Artifacts and building techniques influenced later architecture in Mesopotamia and beyond. Sumerian ideas about kingship, divine mandate, and ritual order shaped the beliefs of successor states. The careful preservation of records allowed Sumerian achievements to survive long after their cities fell. Through tablets, language, and tradition, the soul of Sumerian civilization passed forward into the foundations of later societies.